Hello, my name is Christian Clanton. This is my financial fitness project, or my service learning project for fall 2025 of personal financial planning. And so, for my service learning, I wanted to create a kind of a video presentation just around financial fitness, that's specifically targeting DBU students, and specifically targeting a fellow student that I'll have review this presentation. So the purpose of this project is to provide DBU students with practical financial guidance, just kind of general advice and guidance to go by whether you're in a financial career or not. This is just good for, your own finances. And if you are in a financial career, then obviously good for basic knowledge. Another purpose is to promote financial fitness for college life and beyond. Like I just said, we'll all have finances post college, and it's good to just have some knowledge of that for our own finances. And a last reason is to support students in achieving long term financial goals. Many of us will have investing goals. We'll want to invest money, want to, save money, retire with money set aside. And in order to do that, we have to have smart financial decisions and smart financial, aspects in our day to day life. So what is financial fitness? It is many things, and it's very broad, but just four quick bullet points. One, taking control of your money. So how it's being spent, how it's earning, how it's sitting, making sure it's not just sitting there or that it's not there at all. Another reason is making intentional financial choices, reducing stress and strengthening long-term stability, and essential for students preparing for independence. So it's really all about your finances and what you're doing with your money, how you're spending it, how you're saving it, how you're investing it. Why financial fitness matters. Many people in today don't have just the basic knowledge of finances, and for that reason, don't have a lot of spare money and don't have a lot of money just to have in their day-to-day life. So when you have financial fitness in your life, you avoid unnecessary debt. You helps you plan for future goals, builds confidence with money, and encourages wide stewardship and responsibility. When you know how to help your money grow, you're not going to cut corners as easily, and you're not going to, make bad decisions that aren't decisions we should be making as Christians. Budgeting basics. So, budgeting equals knowing where your money goes. How much is going to food, how much is going to rent, how much is going to these different expenses that you have over the course of your life. Budgeting prevents overspending. Knowing how much money you have and how much you are spending, it's very hard to overspend if you're keeping track of all that. Another thing is it makes saving easier and automatic. When you have a budget, you can budget your food, like I said, housing, expenses, payments, all that, and also budget in, how much money you're going to set aside each month to save and then to invest or whatever you want to do with your money. It just keeps you a lot more organized, kind of gives you an outline and a plan for the present and the future. So there's three different components of a simple student budget. One, got to take into account income, expenses, and savings. So as income, specifically for college, we have some of us have jobs that would be paychecks. Whether you're working at a school job or outside of the university. You have scholarships and stipends. That's somewhat of a form of income because that's going to be used to go against your expenses. And side jobs. So this kind of goes along with paychecks, but also you might have a job and you might also do a side thing. You might make small, arts and crafts or whatever for all our friends at school. And so all that is income. Next is expenses. So we have fixed expenses, rent, phone bill, insurance, variable, food, gas, entertainment. So your fixed ones you have every month or every semester in regards to rent. And those are, when those are coming, how much. That's very fixed. Variable, food. If you're on a budget, it might be more fixed. Otherwise, if you're having different meals and stuff like that, that can vary. Gas, how much you're driving, entertainment, what are you doing on the weekends or on weeknights. And the last part is savings, emergency fund. Are you setting aside money in your emergency fund? Do you have short-term goals, investment goals? Could be goals, you're wanting to go on a trip, you're wanting to buy this or that. And then long-term investing, are you setting money aside currently to help invest for your future post-college? Tools to help you budget. So there's many different things, we've learned about a bunch this semester in our personal finance class, and even just a simple Google search, you can find a lot, from Mint to YNAB, you need a budget, bank budgeting tools, Excel or Google Sheet templates. It's very easy in today to have a budget, You can make your own budget, or even a lot of there's websites that can help you kind of make that template and fill it out. So, if you're willing to do it, it's very easy in today's world. Smart financial practices. So, they're simple things. Track your spending, set monthly financial goals, use student discounts, automate savings whenever possible. So these are just little things, track how much you're spending, food, all that, to know how much you're spending, making sure you somewhat have a budget for yourself, setting monthly financial goals, saving X amount of money each month. Use student discounts where you can, sometimes it's very small, but those add up. Just little things like that can allow you to have more financial freedom, and just, build savings whenever it can. Try to set money aside, invest in your future. And to the right, we have this graphic, this is SMART. So these are just the kind of little acronym for, goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Make sure you're using SMART, the acronym, when you're making these goals. You don't want to set unrealistic goals, or goals that are too easy or too far. So how to avoid some common money mistakes. Impulse purchases. Before you buy something, ask yourself, is it really something I need, or is it something I want? If it's a want, am I in a position that I can buy that want right now? If not, maybe you need to save and just wait until a later date. Another thing is too many subscriptions, making sure, something real easy, especially for college students, just how many movie subscriptions do you have? Do you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon? Do you have all of them? Do you need all of them? Maybe you can cut down and save certain things here and there while still getting to enjoy, the entertainment. Eating out too often, that's another big one. It's easy to do, just you don't want to cook, you don't want to go to the grocery store. It's easy to go out, but in the world we live in today, that's very expensive, and so you got to keep track of that and keep an eye on that. Another is relying on credit cards for emergencies. I think a lot of people in today's society, even adults, sadly don't understand fully the concept of credit cards. And so, are you relying on that as really borrowing money, or is that, if you're using credit card to build credit and that you have the money to pay it off at the end of the month, that's one thing. But, you got to make sure that you're not spending money that you don't have, or that you won't have. Building an emergency fund. This could start with something real small, $500 or $1,000. It can be less. It can be whatever fits your financial plan. This prevents credit card debt. This gives financial peace of mind. Start small and build gradually. You got to start somewhere, and eventually you're building this up to where, in an instant where you did use a credit card and you might not have that money, you have money to pay something. Car breaks down. There's an expense, maybe if you own a house or own something else that just has an unexpected expense. Emergency funds are very beneficial and definitely, allow you to be able to have that financial freedom moving forward. Credit cards, you have to use them wisely. They can be really good in some scenarios if they're used smartly, and if not, they can really destroy someone's life. So, pay balance in full each month. Don't let it go over, because interest on credit cards is very high, and that builds up. Keep the utilization of them under 30%. Don't be putting all your expenses on a credit card. Paying on time builds credit. That's why they can be a really good thing. If you're paying them on time, they build credit. You have a high credit score. If you need to borrow money one day for house, car, whatever, get a loan out for business, it makes that a lot easier. Bad credit score, it's tough to borrow money. Credit score matters for future loans. Like I just said, you have no idea what you're going to be buying in the future. You could buy a business in 30 years, 20 years. You have no idea. You want that score to be high, and that's why you need to start now paying those balances off each month in full. Long-term financial health. Start investing early. I think I talk to a lot of my friends and stuff, and that's not always a common thing. Kids our age, or young adults, as a lot of us are, but start it now. And if you start investing money now, by the time you can retire 50 or 60 with quite a bit of money aside if you're smart with those investments. Even just small amounts each month will grow over time, even if it's just $50, $100, if that's continuing to add up every month in an investment that's growing, that can really add up to a lot. Compound interest, explained simply, is just, you're adding more money in each month and that's continuing to grow with a certain rate. And so, it might be $50 today, but in 2 years you could have $5,000. And so that's just, that interest rate's going on a bigger amount each month. Consider Roth IRA or index funds if eligible. These are great ways to help grow that money. There's all sorts of investments or different accounts, brokerage accounts, all sorts of things. It doesn't have, you can be, if you don't like kind of the risk of, investing in companies, there's so many other ways to grow your money. Just research that, kind of find what fits your financial goals and your financial plan best. Planning for future goals, buying a car, saving for a home, paying off student loans, starting a business or career fund. These are all things you need to start planning for. We're going to be out of college soon and we're going to have a lot of expenses. We need to plan for those and make sure that we're on track for that. After college, even once we buy our first apartment, home, car, whatever, most likely we'll buy another home or another car throughout the course of our career and our retirement. Plan for those now so that you can make that less stressful and easier to do when those come. How this will benefit DBU students. So, my goal for this presentation, build confidence in managing your money. A lot of people don't have that, and so just these little simple piece of advice, these simple rules to follow can help that a lot. I want to provide practical, easy to apply steps. I tried to keep this real simple, real basic, kind of for anyone, dummy proof sort of. I want anybody to be able to take this and help benefit them with their finances. I want to encourage responsible financial habits, making sure you're not spending money where you don't need to, where you don't have it, Make sure when you're fresh out of college and you don't have that much money, don't be buying all these nice things, Save, be frugal at first so that you can have nice things later on. And I want to help students reach long-term goals, I think everyone wants to retire early or have the freedom to do what they want to earlier rather than later. And in order to do that, you got to be smart with your money now and save and invest properly. It's kind of just to wrap up the final takeaway. Financial fitness starts with small, consistent habits. You don't have to completely 180 flip today, but if you just make one small change today, keep that going tomorrow, make another small change, and just day by day continue to be better. Can really grow into something big. You don't need to be perfect, just intentional. You might make a mistake. You might go 6 months doing really well and you might make a purchase, and as time goes on and you're saving this money, you can start to make purchases that, might be bigger purchases or might be, kind of want-based purchases. And that's the whole reason for this is, allow yourself to have the financial freedom to do that. So just start small. You don't need to be perfect. You make a mistake, that's fine. Keep going. Just be intentional about your money and your finances. And I promise you, your future self will thank you a lot if you make those decisions now, make those changes, and give yourself financial freedom in the end. I appreciate you watching. Financial fitness starts today. Make some change today. Small. It can be saving $5, just something to get going and really turn your future around and make it a bright way. I hope this helped. Thanks.